the happenstance approach? Well, yes, I can. But I was doing some research in England, and I was interviewing a guy who was a chemist. He was 25 years old, and I was just doing some research on how people got into various fields, and so I asked him, how did you get to be a chemist? And he said, well, here in England, we have to declare our occupational goals when we are 15 years old. And the way they do it in England, it's not just declaring a goal. You have to actually do it. So he said, well, I didn't have the slightest idea what I wanted it to be, and so I talked to one of my buddies, and he said that he had heard that chemists made a lot of money. And so I wrote down chemist on this form. So then, when I went to high school, I was put into a lot of chemistry classes. Then I graduated, and then I went to college, and they put me in more chemistry classes. And then I went to graduate school, and they put me in more chemistry classes. And I got my PhD, and so then they hired me at a chemical factory, and now I'm working as a chemist in a chemical factory. I said, oh, well, how do you like it? I said, I hate it.
Here we go.
I hate it. I said, well, why don't you change? Why don't you do something else? Oh, I can't do that. Why not? Because I have so much invested in chemistry. I can't change. So now I'm thinking to myself, to answer your question, I'm thinking to myself, here is somebody who is going to spend the next 35 years of his life doing something he hates because he spent the last 10 years of his life doing something he hates. Does that make sense? Should people be required to stick with a choice even when it is no longer what they want to do? And my notion of freedom of choice is no, you shouldn't be required to do something you don't want to do. I mean, sometimes the choices aren't all that clear, but if you really don't want to do it, and there are other things that you could do, why should you be required to do it? And he felt that he was required to do it, and it just seemed wrong. So that sort of started on this notion that declaring occupational choices and making people stick with them is not the right way to go. That's what started my thinking on this line. And I was working on this career beliefs inventory at the time, and so part of it was creating some items that actually sort of go against the grain of the common thinking at that time, which was that you should you should declare a career choice. But I turned it around so that if you were open-minded, it was a more positive sign than if you had already made up your mind. So that was sort of an initial experience. I don't know how to answer your question. I mean, a lot more little steps along the way, but that was sort of the beginning point for me.
How long ago?
That was about 1983. So that was an unplanned event, interviewing this particular guy. If I'd interviewed somebody else, I might make a different conclusion. I mean, my whole life has been one unplanned event after another, after another, after another. No way could I have ever planned what has actually happened.
About paying the bills while you're taking this leap, right? So if the person was a chemist and wanted to do something else, well, possibly he didn't have the confidence to make the leap, wasn't comfortable with taking a risk, and just couldn't get to that point, so.
And maybe just didn't want to take the financial sacrifice that
Right.
might be entailed.
Right.
Absolutely. See, and see, I respect the right of people to work for money. I mean, it's a personal need, and sometimes people are willing to work at things that they hate because the money's so good. Well, okay. I mean, I'm not going to argue with anybody about that. I mean, everybody has a free choice to some extent. But people have to make trade-offs. I mean, the world isn't set so that everything is all peachy creamy on one thing and everything is all bad on the other. There are balances we have to find. Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what you think, in particular I'm interested in high school age, what do you think they should be, I mean, I agree with you they shouldn't be choosing one career and going for that, but I also see a need for exploration because sometimes they're choosing careers because of what they see on TV, what their parents do and so on, and those aren't appropriate ways to do it. So, but you, I mean, are you saying they should just go through school and do what they think they need to do and then figure it out later, or let things happen?
What I'm saying is that kids should be encouraged to try things, to do things. So in school, they should be volunteering to work on the school newspaper, or participate in drama productions, or play in the orchestra, or
but really they should have an idea about what their interests are.
Well,
So
they might have some idea of what their interests are, and they should actually do things along the lines of what they're interested
Right.
in. But not just, but see, that's the key. It's the doing that's important. It's not just, just sitting passively and even just doing your homework assignments. You ought to be out in the world doing something with real people, trying out things. I mean, I think having a part-time job is a good thing. You're working at McDonald's, flipping hamburgers. Is that a good job? Yeah, it's better than no job at all. You learn a lot. You learn a lot if you're working in a fast food service place. You learn how to get along with people. I had a talk with a student at Stanford who was working as a supervisor at Starbucks. She was telling me about how she has to deal with customers who are obnoxious. And it's a skill, an important skill you learn in dealing with people. And you don't learn it by reading about it in books. Even though some of you have bought a really good book. Am I answering your question? Yes.
It does seem like there's the potential for misinterpretation in the same way that encouraging goal-directed behavior can be misinterpreted to, having a one career option in mind. But interpreting undecidedness as open-mindedness seems like it also has that potential because being active and taking steps means that you have to get beyond undecidedness, that you do have to, take those actions.
Well, you have to make a decision to try something, to do it. See? Now, sometimes the question is, well, how long do I need to try it before I decide that this is not right? See? Now, there is a certain advantage of sticking with an occupation long enough to give it a decent try. And that limit is an individual choice. But I recognize that it is a choice. That is, I suppose you could, you start a new job and you work there for an hour and you think, hey, I hate this, and I'm leaving. Well, you probably don't have enough information after 1 hour. You need to spend at least a day, maybe a week, maybe a month. But there's some length of time before you decide.